I think we are at a time where we cannot afford not to tap into all sorts of intelligence.
100%. And the ancients have a lot to teach us.
Being able to sit next to the tree and ask, what can it share for you? This gathering of tribes is amazing. So many friends, incredible people that are regens, passionate about future making. And it's an ecosystem and a pre-acceleration program for Indigenous and women of color founders in health, climate, and education, acknowledging that it's possible and it's available. And there was a moment where I literally used to say, if God exists, then I don't want to hear about it. I was so upset, full of grief and anger. It took me many years and this whole journey to then come to where I'm at now, which is how I write when I'm fully myself. Honoring my sovereignty and freedom, and I'm more than honored to be sharing some of my latest poems with you.
Oh, well, hey, thanks for carving time out of your, gathering to be here and share some of your poetry. I can't wait to hear what's happened since we last spoke. We obviously had a chance to dive into being other and get a little bit of a glimpse, but you've been on tour again since then, and catch me up. What's happened?
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, I'm so happy to see you. This gathering of tribes is amazing. So many friends, incredible people that are regens, passionate about future making, the utmost care and attention. And yes, I've been on a journey. I actually just came back to Portugal about 10 days ago.
Nice.
From a beautiful summer book tour in North America, starting with New York City, going to Toronto, Montreal.
Amazing.
And Vancouver, and then Hawaii.
So cool. Hawaii as well. Beautiful.
Very, very special. And it's kind of a chapter into this worldwide book tour, because I think when we spoke, I had presented my book in a few places.
Yeah, Dubai as well, right?
Dubai, that's right. Well, since then, I actually also presented it in India. So
amazing. Nice. So special.
Yeah, I went to kind of all in all present my book to about 1,000 people through 20 workshops, masterclasses, or talks from Cape Town to Davos to Dubai to crisscrossing India. And then this North American summer book tour and a few more scheduled in the fall. So it's really beautiful, exciting, rich, immense. It's a beautiful human experience. I mean, it's very, very special.
Congrats. What an honor. Yeah, I know it was a big leap of faith, putting so much of yourself out there in the form of writing and trusting that it'll reach the right people.
Absolutely. And then at the same time, it's a gift that people receive with so much empathy and desire to connect. So that's what's been really special is every space was an opportunity to go deeper into people's story and how do they show up more authentically? How do they do their inner work? What's their aspiration for change making?
Good time.
So if anything, I've been just completely graced with this possibility. And yeah, I might have mentioned when we spoke, but now it's becoming a bit more concrete.
Yeah.
That this book, being Other, the beauty and power of being an outsider, holds this theory of change and really this vision around the role of women of color, in particular women from the global south, from minority groups in the global north, for change making. And what's deriving from it and what's being born now is this beautiful project that I've had for many years, and I kind of was waiting for the right time, and it feels like the time is now and it's real. It's called Integritas, and it's an ecosystem and a pre-acceleration program for Black and Indigenous and women of color founders in health, climate, and education. So
cool.
By this time, with my co-founders, we're on a beautiful fundraising, synergies, partnership development. We launched the program in 2025.
Oh my God.
Around the corner.
Yeah, we could do this. Is amazing. So full circle.
It's a beautiful baby to be born, and it feels amazing because it's this journey of alignment. You know, I had the chance, and I have the chance now to continue working with amazing clients for missions that I find important, and I can see what I can bring to the mission. And at the same time, as a change maker, when you have that moment and that opportunity, and it's always a leap of faith, and it's always, it's been a lot of inner work at the same time the last few months to ask myself whether I had it in me to jump onto a new venture after those that I built, and kind of like have it all encompassing, whilst at the same time making sure that I remain in my flow and in a flow and nourishing all of the dimensions of my life. And I think as a woman in particular, those questions become really crucial at certain times. So I'm really happy to have come to that place of acknowledging that it's possible and it's available, and I'm already walking the path. Yeah.
Living it out. That's so cool. Well, I'd love to have a chance to check out some of the poetry that you've been exploring today. And I think it'd be nice to give a bit of a framing in terms of like how this show is different from Refi Podcast, and maybe some of the journey I've been on just as a overarching view of our time together. So we obviously spoke probably a year ago now. In Lisbon, studio in the city, super fun space. And I was kind of transitioning out of the regenerative finance movement as a part of my own personal journey of just wanting to see a bigger picture. Crypto and climate was a really amazing home for a season, and it was very resonant. I learned so much, but I just felt like the container for me personally has to be bigger. Like I wanted a bigger view. And so the show Regenerative is really kind of looking at the broader regenerative movement and trying to embrace art and music and culture and, the regenerative spirit being infused in all things. And I think, it's really so special that you're delving into the world of poetry after having written a piece of nonfiction that's, very, very close to obviously your heart and your lived experience. But I think it'll be nice to resonate. But maybe before we jump into reading a piece, or do you want to read one to kick us off? I'd just love to hear how like this craft fits within your broader view of the change that you want to make in the world.
Well, if you must know, poetry has always been there with me, actually. Yeah. And a few years back, I started kind of making it more and more normal in my life to carve time and space for experiences to really just process them. And I kind of realized also people giving me a feedback over how I write when I'm fully myself. And there is a lot of poetry, and I think that comes from being born in that culture. I'm Moroccan. Being Moroccan means so many things. It's at the intersection of so many cultures, really, and the Arabic is very present in my life, despite the fact that I don't have to speak it every day. I mostly travel, live abroad, and very rarely work with Arabic. Although now I'm working on an anthology of poems.
So nice.
So my poetry I've written in English, but I'm working on a design that will have the Arabic and the English, and it's beautiful because the language, the alphabet is visually.
Oh my gosh.
Special.
Stunning.
Exactly. And the sound of it also. And also being able to convey those experiences that I've had, like typically so there are 3 tomes, right? The first one that I've written a few years back over my travels in Latin America and other places is called A Nomadic Eye, Sporadic Hearts.
Nice.
And so some of the experiences that I've had as a traveler, I thought I would never be able to be understood in my own culture, where I'll be judged. And so it is a step to be able to share that. And I actually worked on the translation with my mother. And my mother...
Oh, nice.
It's so
sweet.
She said, I would learn so many things about you. And I think, kind of unlocked a few things for her, and then women around her that she was sharing this with. And so I realized...
Oh, what an honor.
It's definitely in this path of like honoring my sovereignty and freedom. And I'm more than honored to be sharing some of my latest poems with you.
Beautiful. Go right ahead.
So this first one is called Beyond Our Fences. Beyond our fences, I entered the garden of the park of necessities at dusk. I passed the fountain murmurs and the peacock's rustles and the cat's purr, and saluted the chicken on trees and the bees. And while the sky was turning orange and pink, I entered my sanctuary, not to think, in this loving tree with countless branches, calling for other chances, whispering to the spirits with the Mother Guru lyrics, preparing for the night of destiny. I almost got locked in the Garden of Eden. I hurried from one closed gate to the next, these wilds around our fences. My sole company, the postmodern humanistic texts. Surely there would be someone in the castle, amicable. I found a fence I could reasonably climb. Memories of past injuries resurfaced. Of this time, I tried a jump from a wall in Provence.
Mm-hmm.
A military boot camp I soon withdrew from, no offense. It turned out this time I landed in the courtyard of a training building of the Portuguese Defense Ministry. A few formalities, sincere apologies. I was free to return to the untamed lands of our prayers.
Wow. What's this one called?
Beyond Our Fences.
Beyond Our Fences.
So there are many inspirations to it. The first one is a book by BIWOC, who's a post-humanist thinker.
Yeah, I think I met him through House of Beautiful Business. Yeah, he's an amazing human.
Fabulous, and we've had him when I brought I kind of co-hosted and co-curated the last House of Beautiful Business Festival. He came to Morocco. Loves Morocco, and his book and his voice and his thinking is something that really inspires me. And so I was reading this book at this time. And so what happened was that I was back from India and Malaysia, back in Portugal, and this kind of like moment in between, about to fly to Morocco for hosting that gathering, and trying to find my ground again. So it's the park that's next to my former house in Campo de Ourique, the park Necessidades. So I went there and I used to find that tree that they have a few of those like very big trees where you can really sit inside and meditate. And so I did that. I sat inside and meditated. And I was listening to a prayer from Amma, or the tradition of Amma, the Indian guru, whom I had met a few weeks prior in my latest stop during my Indian book tour, whom I loved very much. And she gave me the most beautiful benediction over. It was extremely powerful.
Awesome.
And for me, connecting with this woman who's the embodiment of female leadership, motherly love that she gives to the entire humanity is intense and beautiful, and like recalibrating as well when sometimes you're in doubt and sometimes you're thinking, is this the right time for feminine leadership at the end of the day? Sometimes we can get into those places. So anyway, I was listening to that prayer, and then after my meditation, I realized I walked out the park and I tried to, and I realized I was stuck inside. They had closed the park.
Oh my gosh, because you're inside the tree.
Exactly. And so literally what I'm telling in this poem was when it happened, I went to one gate and to the next. And then at some point I was like, okay, well, there's a fence. Maybe I'll jump. And then I jumped and I ended in the parking lot of a tree that belongs to the Ministry of Defense. And then I had to check out and thank God, actually, there was someone for a good half hour. I couldn't find anyone. But then he asked me for my ID. And then I thought, maybe I'm going to find myself in trouble. But in the end, they apologized because they didn't have the hours written. So no one.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Actually closed the park. But that's how this poem came.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
What a spark.
It was very special. But it was also Ramadan, and so I talk about the night of destiny, which is Laylat al-Qadr, which is the 27th night of Ramadan, and it's a beautiful. For me, I think it's one of the traditions I'm very attached to. It's this image that angels come down to earth to hear the prayers, most intimate prayers of everyone. And the prayer in the Quran says that every prayer during the night of destiny is worth 1,000 prayers.
Oh, wow.
So the traditions around that night are very beautiful. And so it was just a beautiful spiritual moment.
What resonance. Amazing. And this is something I know little about. My conception of prayer within like the Islamic tradition is more, routine and ritual, and it's memorized. And I love this kind of idea of a really vulnerable, almost like dark night of the soul heard by the angels. Is this something that you see and witness in, parts of your I don't know, experience this sort of like pouring out of the heart? Because it doesn't seem as visible from, I don't know, what the tradition can be known for.
Well, I must say I had quite a journey with the tradition. I grew up in a secular Muslim family and in an environment mostly French where atheism was the
predominant way, yeah.
And for a number of reasons, I felt really like it was better for me to disconnect from this tradition because it felt intrusive, it felt inauthentic, it felt more like religiosity rather than authenticity and spirituality. And also a number of events happened in my life. So whenever my sister was sick and then passed away, there was a moment where I literally used to say, if God exists, then I definitely don't want to hear about him. And I was so upset. I was full of grief and anger, but it took me many years and this whole journey to then come to where I'm at now, which is this embracing and openness to all modalities and understanding and appreciating this beautiful legacy, which in reality, and I have the freedom now to connect with it with an approach that feels safe to me.
And what serves you.
Exactly, that serves me best. And so I kind of pick and choose if to say it.
Of course.
In the
take what resonates.
Exactly.
Leave what doesn't.
Exactly. And so what's empowering. And for me, I kind of realized the Sufi tradition is very beautiful.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
You can attend a few festivals in Morocco, the Sacred Music Festival in Fez or some others. And we have that imbued in the culture anyway without the religious aspect, although it's everywhere. But this thing of getting into trance mode almost was with religious stuff.
Oh my gosh.
And so I appreciate that very much. I know music is so important for me in my in being who I am, becoming, and also accessing knowledge. Right. And so these levels of frequency and so on, it's so important. But yeah, I'd say it's also that music and musicality is very present. And it's, for me, the very particular thing about music, and I love to sing, I'm a vocalist.
Oh, nice. I didn't know this part. Beautiful.
Is I realize you cannot lie. It's truth. If you're going to sing something uplifting in your soul,
you feel it.
You can't. Yeah. Like, everyone that's perceptive enough is going to hear it. And so that's what I love about music. Just like
so beautiful
practices. You ask,
so interesting.
Truth is coming through.
Yeah. Yeah. I really appreciate you bringing up this Sufi tradition, trance, and music. I recently had probably the most incredible musical experience of my life at Waking Life on the live stage. There was a trio of performers from Pakistan and Sufi tradition. I guess the style of music is called like Balochi or Balochistan. And the guy was in a trance. He was like in his 90s playing this beautiful musical instrument. It was incredibly high tempo, very upbeat, all major tonality. And for like 3 hours, he was in this beautiful trance. Everyone in the room was just gravitating on every single note that was coming next. And they would start over these, very, very repetitive movements of these songs, and I was just transfixed. Like, the frequency was so loving, it was so profound and almost addictive in a way. And I found myself afterwards being like, I've never had an experience like that, but how could I recreate it? What could reach that? And I was listening to that music when I was writing, and it's phenomenal how the resonance in the body is hard to mimic and hard to replicate. And I think a lot of our sort of visual driven society misses the resonance of the stimulus and this frequency that you get through presence. So thank you for sharing that and sparking that thread. And I'm
also so glad that I'm hearing this connection that you're having and nurturing now with Eastern traditions.
Totally.
The reason I say that is because I realize in navigating multiple cultures, I keep on telling people that are so interested in spreading love and coming from a place of love, and that, as much as you look at the Greek definitions of love, and there are at least 7, in Arabic there are 50 different words to is love, and it's and so that level of nuance sometimes is hard to perceive or misunderstood. And we live in a time and age where there are still a number of people that want to manufacture so-called civilizational clashes to kind of and remove people from that possibility of connection to the deeper and different.
Yeah.
And I find it so important in our time, if we're talking about regeneration,
Yes.
to approach it from a place of openness and really welcoming all cultures, because they definitely have a lot to feed one another. If in Portugal, many people are trying to reconnect with their Arab heritage around water management, because obviously tribes that have navigated decades, centuries where water was not so available. Now it's even worse. Morocco and the region is really paying the cost of climate change.
Of course.
But a number of traditions around how we build buildings and how we create a water management system. It's so important. And so I think we are at a time where we cannot afford not to tap into all sorts of intelligence.
All forms. 100%. Yeah, I love that. And the ancients have a lot to teach us. But it takes slowing down to really sink into it. Do you have anything else that you'd like to share?
I would love to. Okay, so then this next poem that I'm going to share with you is called Finish Line. I've come a long way and there's no finish line. Staying in my lane is my main pride. I'll admit, I need those claps and hugs and cheerleaders along the way, because it takes what it takes to revisit barren wounds and feel the shivers of light, sense the growth, the ever-expansive warmth, and feel afloat. Someone please call 211. Can you do that for me? I need a crew of friends that wonders, that cares, that doesn't get lost in vain words, but found in plain cards, all on the table. Because we have no time to waste in getting convoluted, dysregulated, manipulated, and rhetorical fire and soulless parades. What I know is that in the strength of the heart, we take this radical break from an old that deceived, a new that's not quite formed, and we can make hope real and believe in human decency with ease and flow, with grace, like two friends on a kayak on the go.
This sparked the kind of like desire for authentic connection that I know you really seem to struggle for, and especially your time in Paris, it seemed there was a lot of opportunity for being missed. Where was this born of?
So this poem I've written maybe at the end of July, early August. I was in Canada. I spent most of my summer in Canada. And I had many inspirations for it. I spent about a week in a place called Wasan Island with other change makers.
Amazing.
I've had so many friendship crushes.
Oh, yeah.
One of them in particular with someone who's so witty and smart. He has like a foldable kayak.
Cool.
So it's so well done. I was very impressed. And so the first time we went on the lake, we had such a profound conversation. And so I wanted more of it.
Nice.
He had the second one. And then we had two more in Toronto, actually just before I flew out. So this level of connection is definitely part of. We're part of the same tribe. That's
for sure.
He's a researcher on empathy and AI, and so
interesting,
fascinating human being.
Beautiful.
And so there was him, like this connection, which for me was very soothing because I was kind of in an exploratory mode in Canada, kind of trying to understand what's the social entrepreneurship scene like, who's doing what, with whom I could potentially collaborate in the future, and so on. And so, yes, there was this aspiration. The 211 is actually a beautiful story. A woman called Alison Howitt, who was there at the retreat, with whom I became friends, who was very supportive. She came to a number of my book talks and such. And she is a brilliant change maker. She's led Mars, which is the biggest center for social impact in North America. For many years, she was a VP for Impact. And she also had this project of setting up a number just like 911, but instead of emergency, each saw social and humanitarian causes. So if you need to know which organization tackles the issues of this population or that population, if you have a question.
Or meet somebody on the street that has a need and you,
And when she told me about it, I was like, I revisited so many situations where people would come to me with an issue and I had no clue, and I would try to imagine.
And it's so hard in that moment on spot. I had an experience like this very recently. Super interesting. Wow, what an incredible resource.
So it was fantastic. And then the other side of it is kind of like I was living this beautiful kind of unfolding of this summer, right? This book tour and so on. And in contrast, I was witnessing some behaviors that felt like misaligned with organizations that I had been working with or I was still working with. And it felt like that level of, okay, they're very good at talking. Yeah. What about the doing? They're very good at putting out elements that call for connection, but what about the real connection? And other behaviors that felt really like not acceptable, which is why I call in for human decency. And so eventually this episode happened a few weeks before I went to Hawaii, and before I kind of worked with an organization called the Nation of Hawaii with Peggy Lou, it was an incredible energy master and so on. And I really found myself in flow. And so it's fantastic to see, like how through poetry, you can have some intuition around what you're calling. Of course, people could do it through mantras and through singing to other practices, but I find myself really, anytime I write a poem, it captures the moment and some state in the past and some state in the future. But it's my compass, it's my roadmap, essentially. It's my sense making of the world when everything is shape-shifting.
So beautiful. I'm loving it. Do you have anything else you want to share?
Oh, yes. Well, I'll share. So like I told you, I'm working on an anthology of poems in English and Arabic, and it's very close to my heart. I'm going to share a poem that I've written a few years back and that I actually performed at that festival between the two of us. And it was really powerful because my mother was present.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So the poem is called My Mothers. My mother is an Arab, a passionate, glorious, powerful Arab woman. My second mother, my Dada, is a Berber, a fierce, proud, powerful Berber woman. My mothers cared for me, one for longer than the other. One held me in her belly, the other braced the cover. My mother would quarrel sometimes, but always prime the chimes. They would lean on one another, for men and this society would make them suffer. My mother is from the capital city. She knows its stories intimately. My second mother grew up in the mountains. She walked for hours every day to the fountains. My mother taught my second mother how to read and write. The pen, she believes, is the only way to fight.
Wow.
My second mother prefers magic spells, how the wind roars and what the card tells. The eye, she believes, is a better night. One day, my second mother sought refuge from a fist fight she undertook and the trial induced. My mother held the door open to the woman with orange eyes, no word spoken. My mother asks me to straighten my hair. She knows too well the world works better for skins that are fair. My second mother draws henna flower, beware. She plants rose seeds and makes me dare. Any mother I shall become will dance with the power of one. Woven in love, the tie is spun of my mother and my second mother and all the mothers of their mothers, of Arab women, of Berber women, of African women. To the mighty power of all these women, I bow.
Oh, so nice. Wow, what rich tapestry. How did your mom react?
I think she was very moved from what I remember and what I've seen in the pictures. She was very, very moved. Yeah, it's interesting because she was a bit intimidated. The gathering brought together 700 people, and many of whom at the end came to me and told me, "We're so proud of you. You represent the Moroccan woman so well." And I was very touched. But then I started thinking about it and thinking about my mother too, and how, we have this tradition of, a strong tradition of hospitality, but it's also so heavy on women, and they rarely can enjoy it the way I like to enjoy hosting, co-hosting, being present for people and present for myself too. But for her, seeing me on stage and kind of also playing around things that are a bit taboo, because we never want to show, things that, I forbid you to do because society is going to judge you. And seeing me kind of like really at peace with it and playful, I think she was very touched and very proud. And I realized all my work around literature is actually not only a tribute to her, but also to my whole lineage. My mom was the first one to go to university, and she first one to go to school. My grandmother didn't go to school on my matriarch lineage. And the fact that on my end, I'm kind of like playing with dual degrees and going to different places and have all this freedom and aspiration and ambition and unapologetically kind of like embracing it. But it's not always been the case, because many times I would be questioned and almost shamed, as in, you're going too far, you're going to bother a lot of people, or you're going to have a lot of backlash, or things like this that are piling up. And now I see it with a lot of empathy and compassion, because I see it's the projection of their fears. And for me to be able to kind of transmute that and to actually, all is available for me. Of course, we need to be grounded in understanding that we can't just escape things and function like other beings. Again, like the same topic I mentioned to you, motherhood, precisely. In your 20s and 30s, when in your childbearing years as a woman, it is a question, like, how do you make it happen in a way that feels right, that feels great and nourishing? How do you want a mother? All these questions, of course, they are very present to me, but I just, love being able to tell her how much I love what she's brought to my life. And my second mother, my dada, who was not present, unfortunately, at the gathering, but at the same time, I made peace with it, because I think it would have been tokenizing for her to be just present in this context so foreign. But she knows about it. She knows that I performed it. She's so proud.
Oh man,
it's really important. I think the level of love that they give and transmit. I think in Morocco, we still have a lot of recognition and acknowledgement. It's sometimes a bit lost. Like I told a few friends in some other places in the US and such, and they were so moved, and they were like, "Whoa!" I mean, we wish our kids would recognize the same, at least a little bit of what we've been through, to be able to bring them,
provide them this life
into where they're at. And so I think for me it's important. And,
of course.
It's a foundational relationship. It's a very important one for me. And I realized through it that it's not about just the lineage. It's also a way of being in the world. So actually the tome in my anthology is called Mothers of the Land. How do we walk around the planet really feeling motherly love for it and feeling its motherly love for us?
I think this multi-generational inquiry is very central to this whole regenerative transition. And obviously, our great mother, the earth, from whom all things come and to whom all things return, is the kind of like, ultimate ancestor in a way. But, it's been an interesting journey for me. I had the great opportunity to sit with close family members in ceremony in Mexico, and there's almost this sense that, both the past and the future are emanating from this present moment, and that as we're able to unlock and move through pain and resentment and fear and even bitterness and move into love, that this somehow also sets our parents and their parents free from whatever bondage that held them into that place,
We shift timelines together.
It's really, very unintuitive, but it feels present,
We are. We're a constellation, right?
Yeah.
I love that there's an emergence of many modalities that take this into account, like literally systemic constellation.
Yeah.
But we're under the influence and are in touch with so much and so many. This is why I think in this context, it's so important to go past the illusion that just work on ourselves. And I was looking to creation earlier about boundaries and boundary setting. And it's something that I've actually been struggling with, because I understand and appreciate the value of this reflection, and it's practical. However, when you take the bigger picture, the bigger spectrum, there's so many influences. So not only your ancestors, but also the spirits of this land. We had probably to ask permission to be here in order for things to be smooth and respectful of the sovereignty of every element. And then, kind of the sovereignty of every relationship. So it's a web that's quite complex. And once we walk that path, you can only approach it with the most pure intention of healing and caring and opening to what wants to emerge, because it's there, rather than suppressing. And that's the path to freedom. Yeah. Whatever you free inside of you, you're free for your lineage, for your whole web.
And this is the leadership that the world needs, and that we so...
The elevating one.
Yes. Yeah. The nourishing and asking for permission and walking in alignment and seeking to gather and bring together all of these disparate elements and move beyond our polarity. I'd be curious to, look forward towards what you're doing next, and how what you've learned in this season and what you're feeling into now is informing what you're doing moving forward.
Well, what I can say with confidence is many things that are present in my life now, where I feel so much flow, will continue to be with me in the future. So nature, poetry, and this aspiration to continue moving with care. And I mentioned Hawaii, but I'll just say how profound this experience was to be in touch with elders there and understand the depth of the Aloha spirit. And so my intention is also to move through life with the Aloha spirit.
Can you tell me more about that? I don't know much about these Hawaiian traditions, only a little bit.
Perhaps for context, a few weeks back, I was in Hawaii, both for my book tour. I was invited to speak at a school, and also for a circle of entrepreneurs. But I was also staying at this beautiful land that is owned by the nation of Hawaii, which is an organization that has fought for many decades to protect the sovereignty of Hawaii. And so together with Pagilu, who is their senior international advisor and also energy master, we did some work on the land and with people. So we essentially offered our gifts and, anything else that we could mobilize. And so some of the projects are typically the use of Web3 for to support their intention to disseminate and share the native Aloha spirit, which is a spirit of peace and grace and compassion. It's very, very profound. And so we've been designing some and again mobilizing partners around the possible Hawaii-verse, and right now we're in the process of fundraising for it and other modalities to support the sustainability of this organization. They have 42 acres of land that is
beautiful,
incredible, and they're restoring the terraces and the practices that were ancestral. And so just being there and sitting with these incredible human beings that, have this mission, right? And being of service to them was for me extremely profound. And the beauty of this environment, incredible. And I really found, so whenever I was explained and told and read about and read some poetry from some elders,
so nice,
about this Aloha spirit, I realized, it's just very strong, it's very powerful there. And so this kindness, like the place of kindness, is the ultimate goal for relating to one another. And we're in a very kind space, you and I now. But I would say many times in navigating multiple cultures, and also the Western cultures that value something else, performance,
productivity,
exactly, kindness comes as an afterthought or as a nice to have,
or means to an end sometimes.
Exactly. And so when you put it at the center of the equation, and you almost kind of say, well, we check ourselves against the reality of it. It's shifting the paradigm, right? I was talking to someone here who works on the Value Life Index, and I found it so beautiful. And so this is helping kind of redefine a compass so that people can allow themselves to be in touch with that beautiful part of them. And it's not just vulnerability.
Totally.
Actually, the purpose of being. So for me, it was very profound, and I'm so grateful and I'm so honored to be able to, at this time, find ways to continue supporting them more.
So nice.
Of service. And it's, being connected. People call Hawaii the heart chakra of the earth. And for me, I'm so grateful because it was so recalibrating. So sometimes in being a little bit into those doubts and navigating places, we pick up on other modalities and ways of being. Whereas you go there and you're like, actually, my natural way of being, which is led by my heart that wants to be generous and look at the world with, putting everything in like bubbles of light and just supportive, is allowed.
Yeah.
And that was brilliant. That was...
And nature speaks of this. That's how she sings, and I think there's this amazing emergence of people really leaning into land-based regeneration, and it almost invites us to rediscover our heritage and to remember the wisdom of our elders and to seek it out, and it's just so wonderful that so many people around the world are doing that work and are tapping in, listening to the land. I think we as people have amazing ability to create, also to destroy, but I think we've somehow lost our ability to listen, and to really be tuned in to the voice of the earth and figure out what she needs. And I think the Hawaiian culture is called to me in different times, different ways. Obviously first through surfing, but there's something there. Yeah, there's absolutely something there. And
I'd love to see you there, and hopefully I can find a way to get you on board.
That would be an honor.
Integritas that will have moments there.
And this theme around like the heart chakra of the earth, there's a group of tribes in the High Sierra Nevadas of Colombia that have this area of sacred sites that they call the heart of the world. And they, in their cosmology, believe that everything that happens there in this land is entangled with everything that happens in the rest of the world. And they perceive it almost as like a mirror or a fractal or a holon. And hearing around the way that these people are coming together to restore land and, overcome deforestation and even moving in towards building villages and doing it with such love and compassion. And these indigenous elders, the spiritual leaders, are, leading the way, and they've practiced for centuries, millennia even, this craft of opening the heart and listening to the earth and having this broader awareness of our role within this broader unfolding.
I absolutely love now that people are getting a bit more interested and humble enough to actually learn, because these tribes have access to a technology, actually.
100%. It's such powerful technology.
Exactly. So a year ago, I think perhaps a few weeks before we spoke, an earthquake happened in Morocco. It took the lives of many, 3,000 people, many villages disappeared. And it's this place in Morocco that is, for me, like, I just absolutely love going there because I reconnect with some deep roots of this culture and people that understand or practice Nia, which is this term in Moroccan Arabic and in Darija, that means the purity of intention. And they
so nice
function this way. And I remember watching a documentary that told the stories of some people, and they were obviously, they went through a disaster, and at the same time they were wishing everyone well, and they kind of said,
so beautiful.
We're almost grateful that we were the receivers, because we wouldn't wish this for other people, because we know we can hold this something in that realm. And I just listening to, obviously there's a lot of trauma and there's a lot of help they need as well, and support, but also that wisdom and that power that needs to be recognized.
So incredible.
Seen. And I think a lot of people know Morocco for the beauty and depth of these wisdoms that are of the suburban villages and rural areas and the Atlas Mountains and the likes. But I find it really profound.
Yeah, what a posture with which to face crisis, I think.
With dignity and also with love for the rest of humanity, and perhaps almost too much humility to ask for help.
Yeah,
That's something else. Perhaps pride. But there's a place of convergence where we can find a dignifying way to make sure that brothers and sisters are getting into ease. And obviously, I think if adds one call to action for people is to kind of keeping their eyes and heart open for such situations, obviously from Morocco, but for many other places, because we're in a time where there's going to be a lot more climate crisis and
everything else.
So alternative networks, in addition to the regular humanitarian organizations, need to be ready for that.
Yeah, and individuals need to do the work to prepare for these shocks and to know that.
To transfer technology and make sure that resources can be transferred really, really fast, information go fast, and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to lean into this inquiry that I've been going on. I started a sort of book sprint in the month of July where I was just like, okay, I'm going to clear everything, lock myself away in a cabin for a week, and just look at what's being asked of me. Like, what do I really feel is being drawn? And this idea of the symbiocene, this like future epoch where humanity comes into balance with nature, it can actually propagate harmony at scale. In the same way indigenous cultures have lived in harmony for millennia at a smaller scale, that we could actually have a kind of planetary civilization in balance with Earth's living systems. And as I was in this pursuit, I was doing mostly reading, really. I wasn't actually writing much. I was just reading, looking at like, who holds these visions? And if we can't actually see what's on the other side of climate change or any of the other crises we face, like, how can we get there? And I don't know if there's anything that you've played with around like a longer term view, but I wanted to ask, like, do you have a vision for this new dawn that's being born, and what does it look like?
I love that you share your kind of moment of asking for what's being called for you. I think for me, this summer has also been an opportunity to start working on a new book.
Nice.
And it's kind of an eco-sci-fi.
Cool.
And with a lot of visions that I've had throughout my journey and kind of also through this work that I'm doing with Peggy and other energy activations. And so I'm trying to really like tune in more with my channeling and psychic capacities, which was not
so cool
before, or even my book, my being other. And so it's a lot more present now.
Wow.
And I think the combination of this plus whatever I'm putting together now with Integritas, which is this ecosystem of regenerative thinkers. Actually, it's funny that we speak because it's one of my asks, actually. You're in my list.
Cool. Amazing.
But essentially at this time, I'm kind of like trying to be very present for the present and the near future. And at the same time, my aspiration remains that of, a healed planet where people seamlessly have access to any tools that can bring them to shifting their timelines into getting closer to the higher selves, where higher selves communicate much better, much easier. Well, actually, people are also aware of their gifts, and when we talk about telepathy, clairaudience, clairvoyance, and so on. So it's kind of like this nexus of technology beyond this technology that I'm so grateful for, but this capacity to say, well, something is popping up there and here. Yeah. And it's the rebalancing. And obviously we would, like practically speaking, come to respecting planetary boundaries, which are very far away from.
Of course.
And understanding, and relating to biodiversity, which has been massively attacked. So it's already a lot of work. But in addition to that, there's also seamless interaction with other forms of intelligences. And it's one of the topics I'm quite interested in. Actually, I've read a few of the books from Avi Loeb. I've also met him. He's head of the Department of Astronomy at Harvard.
Okay.
And I was so interested that I actually went to him, and we sat for a tea, and he asked me my review of his book, which I also won. But for me, I think we're at the time where it's not far-fetched. It's possible, and we may be this planet that needs to really connect with other forms of life and other universes at this point. And I think it's asking us really, for those that have undergone many spiritual awakenings, to hold others into their own journey and not feed into any divisiveness from the basis of, not as elevated or whatever.
All right.
So
anything, no other excuse to other anyone else.
Exactly. But continue understanding that we'll probably keep on incarnating ourselves, or maybe not all of us, some of us, but until our souls are satisfied with the learnings, because they always undergo, it's a leap for becoming, and
a leap for becoming.
Because they could also decide to stay in between, where there's no hurt, there's no like you can't experience you don't experience
the dissociation.
Exactly. But I think for me, it's also making all these tools and practices and learnings and knowledge available for everyone, and then tapping onto so much more knowledge. Like being able to sit next to that tree and ask, what can it share for you? And even from a place of not necessarily what you need, but what you would be open to receive. Be it perceptions of that tree and history and all of that. So I'm seeing a world like this where it's
super interesting.
Like you could almost like tap into a screen of like, and we can share this.
So interesting.
And it's like, and it's you're ever expanding with knowledge and love and respect and dignity, and it's kind of like you're growing as a soul. So that's so vision of the future.
Wow, I absolutely.
That was already kind of like getting materialized. And then at my scale and in my lifetime, and at least in what I've been seeing the last few years, and what I'm seeing happen and working towards the next few years, I'm kind of doing a portion of it in my contribution. But I think it's also, pragmatically speaking, this aspiration to see everyone do their part. And so
totally.
Actually live half of a life. If they could tap into that vitality and that power, where would we be?
I think that's what's coming. My sense is there's a real intense period ahead of likely volatility and chaos and uncertainty and confusion, and we may look around and be very confused as to what is actually going on and what is real, what is truth. We're seeing it and feeling it today, but I think it's going to accelerate. And I think for those that take the calling for this chaos and this pain as an invitation for growth, there will be incredible beauty and life that emerges from this. And I think we all go on a healing journey in a way similar to adolescence, where it's like, okay, there's this physical maturation to the body that happens in our teenage years, but then there's this emotional and spiritual maturation that happens often through pain. And it's like humanity's reaching this point where we've, done our adolescent thing of running out of the house, slamming the door, ignoring our great mother, assuming she had nothing to teach us. We knew it all. And now we're looking around at rising tides and rising temperatures and everything that she's telling us and going, oh, okay, maybe there is something here. Maybe she does have something to say. And I think,
I'll add to this, and my invitation is also bringing ourselves into a place where we can build from the future. It's as
so nice. So nice.
The future making, future thinking.
Yeah.
A lot of people with, a background that is fit for organizations that do scenarios for the future and then drive the economy, essentially. Think like this, but it's bigger than this. Like in a creative manner,
100%.
How do we connect with an aspirational future, which is this invitation on our higher selves? Because we can manifest from our subconscious and from lower places of fears, hidden fears, can manifest from our higher selves.
Yes.
This kind of like choice.
That's so nice.
Being really uplifted by the future and striving to enact it.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate this perspective. We did like a backcasting exercise of, imagine we're in 2050, looking back at this moment now, like what did we do here today to make the more beautiful world that we knew was possible?
So in 2050, if we're meeting again, I hope there's many more humans from your lineage and my lineage, and that there's a big party.
Oh, beautiful.
Obviously. I hope there's just the same expression of love that we have today in terms of hugging and singing and all of that celebratory approach. I hope they refer to some of what we did as in something foundational, something that gave them strength and inspiration to move for whatever they had to do. I hope the nature is intact.
Yeah.
I hope there are many birds and animals. I hope we can communicate with them seamlessly. That's why I'm hoping that we're
so beautiful
in 2050 if we record a podcast.
100%. Yeah, my kids will be there. And it's going to be a joy, a real celebration. I think we'll get through. And I know people like you are paving the way and doing what you were born to do. It is a real honor to see you continue to grow. Yeah, one year after another. And see me as an ally for what you're doing. I really celebrate you. And bless you.
Thank you. Bless you.
Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Bye, Hanae.